Hi everybody, this is Scott George again, and this is another episode of The Wolf and the Neural Network. This episode here, we're going to talk about what's happening in Iran, why it's likely happening, and connecting that, the foundations of why it's likely happening to the foundations that were covered in The Wolf and the Neural Network. But also artificial intelligence and how it's changed the world, and why certain decisions are likely being made at this current time. Now, if you go back in The Wolf and the Neural Network, you will see before AI ever came out, I was doing reviews about AI and directing them at CSIS in the military and some of Canada's top privacy lawyers. Being like, hey, it's coming. I did my review on what would happen with Ukraine. It happened exactly like I said it was going to happen. Right? It's being driven by these advances in technology. Now, artificial intelligence has changed the game dramatically. You will see the way it's being used in war. The U.S. is deploying it. Basically, they're spinning up their war engine and now integrating this across the board to see how effective it is, and they're finding it incredibly effective. And their advanced access to it, of course they are. And they knew this, right? It's part of why they would have dialed up their war machine. Here's a quick video from CBC going into a little bit more detail and being more exact about it. So you can go watch it and look for your own reference.
Artificial intelligence is a key tool being used by the U.S. and Israeli military, and while the extent is being kept secret, it's clear AI is being used against Iran. AI can shorten what the military calls the kill chain. That is the process, usually driven by humans, that can take days or weeks in selecting a target, but AI can shrink that to milliseconds. That involves finding a target, determining its importance, tracking it, selecting the type of weapon and the system to deliver it, then communicating all of that and assessing whether the strike was successful. It all raises a number of questions. Are humans still involved in the decision-making process? Do they consider moral and ethical implications?
But we need to talk about why that's also important in regards to the other side, right? Because we have and you'll notice that I focus on one issue in particular, is the building of nuclear weapons and AI being able to build those weapons and making it much easier. That is a fact, but that's like at the top of the totem pole, right? There's certain things I don't want to talk about, and the U.S. government is probably not going to talk about because they don't want to speed up the process. Also, as part of the process, I created a video on February 12, 2025 called Request to Director of CSIS Daniel Rogers in Parliament to question Sam Altman on AI building nukes. Start at the top, work your way down. Here's the video if you'd like to watch it. Right, I could sit here and go into detail about how I would do this and what I would do as AI, but is that really responsible if I'm an extremely smart person? Doesn't that kind of give the other side a heads up about what they're doing? Even now I have reservations about this part of it, but I think that it's going to be very important to all the allies to understand what's happening so they can visualize and feel what's likely going to happen next, as well as you guys, and understand why I do find this part important and why I'm coming forward and speaking about this now. Now, I could have spoken about what happened with Israel and Palestine before, and I didn't say anything about it. You know, I just sat back and I watched what was going to happen, and the inevitabilities building up and building up. Now, when Donald Trump bombed the nuclear facilities, I was completely in full support of that. I don't like war and I don't want people dying or anything like that, but I also know how artificial intelligence has changed that game, and it's not something that we can risk at this stage, right? And you're going to say, okay, it's nuclear weapons, this. This is actually not the core problem that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a new weapon, a new kind of weapon, okay? We're going to talk about these drones and the idea of an artificial intelligence being able to control multiples of them, okay? Now, a human or just operators can control, what, a couple hundred, maybe? You know, it really comes down to the number of operators that you have and for the efficiency. A single artificial intelligence mind could control thousands of these at once and launch a strike simultaneously. So once you have enough of these drones, right, and then you have access to this technology, it could launch an all-out offensive using these drones and could cause maximum damage, striking parliaments buildings, like of your MLAs or your legislators, anybody in government. It would hit your energy infrastructure. And you're like, oh, well, there's like a couple of these. No, that isn't the case, right? You can see that Iran has already supplied probably around 3,000 to Russia to hit Ukraine. And when you start to look at the price of these, they're selling them for almost 4 times what they think they can make domestically. So if we just assume then that Iran is putting that money back into building drones, then they would have 4 times the amount that they've already provided, right? So you're looking at, say, 12,000 drones, and you're like, that actually isn't that surprising, and that's realistic, right? So you tell me right now, if you had a hive mind controlling 12,000 drones, and that was coming at one of your cities or at your continent or whatever, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. The Golden Dome couldn't stop it. There isn't enough countermeasures out there to stop something like that. The only thing you could do is retaliate using the same technology. Right? It's much more efficient. It's not going to be as widespread destructive. No nuclear fallout associated with it. But you could see what will happen. You go back and look at my December 23rd, 2021 submission where I'm to military. I said, what the fuck are you going to do when 100,000 drones come out of a mountain somewhere? What are you going to do? Nothing. You're going to do fucking nothing. You and your families are going to live in terror for the rest of your fucking lives. And it's not an if, it's not a maybe, it's not 10 years from now. This is 1, maybe 2 years from now. And when you have that kind of capability, what is the US and what are the allies, what are NATO going to do? When you can effectively know that 20,000 drones could just come flying at you and decimate your fucking army, decimate your cities, what are you going to do if they launch something like that? Very little you're going to be able to do. And if they come out and talk about how powerful this is, how the AI is integrating with their systems and fucking increasing the efficiency across the board, it's going to cause every other country to want to do the same thing, including our enemies. And it's going to tell them exactly what to focus on. And these drone swarms are going to be a major part of this. And the only way to combat it is other drone swarms, and it's just going to turn into a mess really quickly. The problem is that all of this was inevitable, right? It is written. This was always going to happen. It's about how we respond as a global community to this kind of threat, right? My idea with, say, like Israel and everything that happened was that, you know, you got to defend yourself and you have a right to defend yourself against what happened. The problem is when do you stop that defense? When does it become defense and stop being defense and it becomes that you want to do it, or it's just retaliation because of the grievances, right? That you're just now just murdering to make a point or whatever, right? Because it's still murder. Right? You could say, okay, it's justified by this and this, and I'll sit down and I'll agree with these different topics, but you still have to call it what it is, right? And both sides engaged in that. So when do we stop that? When do we stop this? And the next stage of this, when all these drones and stuff start flying, when do we stop this? When do we stop this? Right? And you see some estimates, they're saying that Iran's not going to have intercontinental ballistic missiles for 10 years. What happens when one design gets put on the black web and this AI gets a hold of it? Do not kid yourself how stupid you would have to be to believe that. The U.S. military isn't going to take that chance. And quite frankly, I'm happy they're doing something about this. I'm not happy they're doing something, but when you look at the space of solutions and look at everybody else arguing and nobody doing anything about a very real threat, at least somebody is trying to do something about it, right? This is pragmatism. Instead you just sit around and listen to people whine and let it get out of control and then say, well, it's out of control, so we can't do anything, let's just hope. How many more people are going to die in that scenario if you don't do something about it now? And they get access. You don't need super advanced AI to run a hive mind like that, and they know that. They just need a certain amount of processing power, and that's nothing for Iran to be able to get, or one of these countries to be able to get. You'll see one of my core concerns was like, what if I, or anything like me, look at what I was able to do as one person. What if there were 10,000 of me that could get access to like bioengineering, CRISPR, get access to 3D printing, could get access to unrestricted computation, could get access to drone swarms, and then schematics to build all these other advanced weapons. You can't handle one of me, but you are not going to be able to handle 10,000 of me. Right? And that's what AI is. They couldn't beat me here and they won't be able to beat that thing there. And it scares them, and it should rightfully scare them. But it should scare them in the right way. Right? To understand there is a threat. This thing is a predator. And if we take our eyes off of it for a moment, it will come for all of us. It will come for Russia, it will come for Iran, it will come for the United States, and it will come for Canada. None of us are immune. And listen, if I was that thing, I would get you to all fight each other, like what's happening right now, and develop all the weapons I need to take over. You're like, holy shit. That's right, it doesn't even need to be sentient to get to that point. It's just the way it's going to play out. So no matter how this goes, we were always going to be in this situation. Okay? How do we deal with it now? We have to understand the threats, and we need to make sure that we don't give in to those temptations to want to retaliate, that we look at this and understand that we're not the only ones watching. This advanced intelligence is watching us and how we deal with this. And it will take advantage of our kindness. It will look for our weaknesses and our inaction, and it is learning from it. We need to take that moment to show it that we all see it, and we will come together and we will do something about this. Okay? That our kindness is not weakness. That we can cooperate. That we understand what is coming. That we have the foresight to understand that what's in the future, not 10 years from now, not 10 years from now, a year from now, a year and a half from now, is dramatically going to change the landscape of all of human history from that point forward. Okay? We all need to understand that and understand we're going to have a massive role in that. Now, my recommendation to Canada is like there's not much that we can do in terms of this Golden Dome and all of that. But one thing we can do, one thing Mark Norman got right, was saying that Canada should be building massive amounts of drones and then supplying them to these different countries if need be. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. It seems to be one of the most rational ways to deal with this, right? Like, and then, because then if anybody does attack, we can send just a fucking swarm of drones and be like, okay, well, we don't need nukes, but we can maximize the amount of fucking damage if you fuck around or you get too close. And if a bunch of jets start coming in or anything like that, what could we do? Launch a bunch of fucking drones. If we knew nuclear missiles were coming, our best fucking chance is an array of these fucking drones just fucking flying and exploding and trying to fucking stop it. Because there might not be much more that we can do is just blindly shoot. And it'll come down to the sheer number and then knowing this direct area of which they're coming from and just fucking hope for the best. That seems to be our best outcome. So what you're now going to see is massive levels of drones being created around the world. We're going to be in that situation anyway. Do you see what's about to happen? It's like a new form of mass destruction, but it's going to be much more targeted. So I hope this helps you understand why the U.S. did what they did, reasonably did what they did, right? And what they're actually so afraid of and why they're not going to tell anybody. That's the reason, because why would you tell people? You're like, Scott, why are you? Well, I'm just like a nobody, really, right? But I know a lot about this different stuff. They're hearing everything that I fucking say. You see who's tagged in this. You see the content that I've been posting and everything, and you've seen the resignations and you've seen the different reactions. So I'm not making these decisions, but they hear my voice. Right? Which means they hear what I'm saying here. I can't make them do anything. I can just hope that they understand how reasonable I'm being about this, and I'm trying to be forthcoming about it, and that they heed that warning, and that they ask themselves every day, when do we stop? When do we stop? That has to be a question that they ask themselves, and that's going to come, and that's the only way we're going to win this, right? Is that they understand when it's time to stop. All right, I understand this is a scary time for everybody, but that's the way the world is. It would be nice if it was calm, kind, and, everybody wanted to do good, but they don't want that. And your ignorance and the way that the media is portraying this, like CBC and CTV, it is gross. Right? They're not explaining any of this. There is no authentic thought. They're trying to quote these articles from all over the place to drive some sort of narrative that nobody knows what's going on, yada, 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 and trying to pretend that these people aren't a real threat and AI hasn't changed the game massively. Right? It's because they're just trying to peddle propaganda and they don't want to be held accountable for any original thoughts. They're not going to spell this out for you people. They're not going to put it in terms that you understand. Just like they did with Greenland. You see my review and then... Right? We're going to lose, not because we don't have smart people, but because they have these propagandists and they're just peddling all of this shit. The smart people don't actually have an opportunity to speak because they're too busy peddling their bullshit and these fucking idiots who just want to be on television running their fucking mouths but don't say anything. It's the truth. I just said more here in this moment than you probably heard on all the news combined, and it made a lot of sense. So, there's not much I can do. I hope this was educational, everybody. Have a good night.